Good news at Primetime with Sylvia Hayes and Reginal Drummer will be starting momentarily. In the meantime, from the 1970s, the best picture ever taken.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Best Picture Ever Taken. Make sure you relax, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome to Good News at Primetime. Hi, I am Sylvia Hayes, and we have a great show tonight. We are talking about parenting. You know, out of all the jobs in the world, parenting is the most important job there could ever be. It's the most important job that God has ever placed upon you to do. He has put a life in your hands to mold and groom and to get ready for the world. So parenting is a good job. Don't take it lightly. And some people just take parenting for granted, but it is a serious job. It is a serious job. Some people don't like it. Some people don't want it. but it is a most serious job, a prestigious job to be a parent. And so we're going to talk about parenting and all the things that parents need to do, should do, and how people take them for granted and all of that good stuff. And with me tonight, we have my good co-host, Mr. Reggie Drama. Hi, Reggie. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. And I think we got an awesome topic this evening. I'm excited, being a parent, grandparent, and even being a step parent, just filling in the role as a dad on duty. And I know there's always moms on a mission. Mm-hmm. So we're excited about the conversation. When you think about life, it starts with the parents.
Exactly. It does. And a lot of people, they don't think twice about it. My mom, and a lot of people, they could be upset with their parents, about things because mom trying to tell them to do something and they don't want to do it. But mom knows best. Mom knows best. I know kids be slipping out of the house because mom tell them don't do it, But no, parents know best. They know what's out there. The kids don't know what they're doing. So parenting, you're going to always be a parent. Once you're a parent, you're going to always be a parent for the rest of your life.
Well, when we think about, parents and, it made me think about traditional parenting. Even if you just looked at here in the African-American community, here in America, as well as here in America, parenting kind of shifted. It went from a situation where you had both parents and there was some type of consensus of, how to raise the children, They were there to be a continuation of the mother and the father. Now, somewhere in there, some of that changed and the roles changed. And, we got a little bit different type parenting today that we had, say, with my great grandmama. She was there. She was the traditional. She was the provider, and she taught her daughter, who was my grandmother, how to be like a wife to a husband. And they probably stayed, they stayed together 40, 50, 60 years, And then the new generation, which came what we call the baby boomers, there was a different change up of the family. The families were taught, you were taught, the women were taught they could be independent, they could provide for themselves and things of that nature. And the men were taught that they could keep going on and do what they were doing. And then you had the invention of the birth control pill. And when that happened, that changed the whole parenting scenario because people said, well, really, I can do just like the men. I really don't have to maintain the family. I can abort or I could keep the offspring. So all that changed, and the future of the family is different today. You've got
but I think though with the abortion thing is saying that you're not going to keep me barefoot and pregnant. Because that's how a lot of men look at women. Well, maybe not now, but at some point that's the way they see barefoot and pregnant. That's your job,
right.
Keep you pregnant. You stay at home and take care of the kids. I go out and do whatever, whenever, So birth control do help a little bit,
it changed the game.
Independent.
Yes. It changed the game because typically in America, you were having up until probably the 60s, women having 8 babies. Because, they just kept getting pregnant. They had no choice. They were baby carriers,
Oh, it's longer than that. Because I got a cousin has 9 or 10 babies now.
Oh, okay. That's an 80s baby? Not an 80s baby. Probably 70s when they stopped.
When he stopped?
Well, having so many babies.
When he started, because he's just a few years older than me.
Oh, but traditionally, you don't have too many women with 8 kids.
Right.
Okay. Now the older women, they had, just say my mom, they had 3, 4. You might have had one that had 5. Okay. But my grandmother and those, they had 9, they had litters, like almost like kittens and dogs,
Yeah.
They had litters of babies. You catch, especially down south, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Arkansas. Our great grandparents had a lot of babies.
Mm-hmm.
But it was necessary because you needed a lot of babies to either work or for babies to survive. Look how many Kennedys they had. They had a bunch of Kennedys. They was kind of wealthy. So, but now typically people have what they call 2.5 babies. That's the average household, 2 to 3 babies.
Yeah.
And that changed. And then that changed the way people started to raise their kids. Because in this new generation, is not being taught certain things like to stay there and raise the kids and cook the food and take care of the house. There are some households that share responsibilities in the house. Mm-hmm. So parenting has changed drastically. And then now with COVID, it changed again.
Yeah. How did COVID make it change? Well, I know the parents stay home now. They got to help with the homework and stuff like that.
Right. And it put the different spouses in the home together at the same time. And it put them in a difficult situation because now you have parents that you got Bob and David, and you got Mary and Sally, raising kids as they consider parents. They're parents, so it's a different scenario. So after all this came forward, especially with COVID, the family, we recognize a different shift in the family because people started to see, well, okay, your daddy is your daddy and your daddy is your mama is your mama, your mama is your mama. So it's a lot of different things, not to make light of those situations, but the family element in parenting has changed drastically. And there's a big shift and we're making some adjustments. The nuclear family is totally different. And even in other cultures, because when you look in, whether it be Chinese, African, Indian, everybody's getting fewer babies and people are searching for independence. They don't want to be dragging babies behind them. Everybody's planning, Planned Parenthood, all that type of stuff. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it is a little different. As far as COVID, the parents now have an opportunity to get to know their children. Because if the teacher called the parents and say, your child is doing this or doing that, and their parents said, that's not my child don't do that.
Right.
They didn't know their child's personality because they were at work or in the streets or something like that. They weren't around their parents. So now with them being home with COVID and have to be there with their children, they're learning their children's personality and what they're all about. And so hopefully that will be an opportunity for them to groom their kids versus being, enrolled or at work all the time and leaving them to the babysitter or leaving them for a latchkey to take care of themselves until they get home. So hopefully, they'll get to do some real parenting, during this time. I know some of them trying to do that with this COVID thing. My child don't want them to have the mask on. So to me, it's like, why would you not want your child to have a mask on? And it doesn't make sense to me. You go send your child out there knowing the virus is out there, but then you don't want to protect your child. What kind of parenting is that? I can understand you don't want to give your child a vaccine because I don't want to take the vaccine myself, but yet still I'm trying to cover up, protect myself from it. From the virus. So why not? And the kids are going out there with this virus. Why not try to protect your child? So that's a bad thing on parenting, you ask me.
Well, again, you've got a shift in the way we parent. Typically, in say the African American community, a part of parenting included the religious side. You know, parenting typically you went to school maybe 5 days, you went to church on Sundays, you played on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's changed. That's not the typical family anymore. You know, we see children. Oh, yes, we have to see children as gifts, and they are. You know, children are gifts, and that was a comment someone made in the chat. See, now you got more families looking at things totally different. The church used to be an influence of the family, and by the church being an influence in the family, they push marriage. So a good part of the family, they were together based on marriage, you know, especially our great grandparents and grandparents, those people that were married 50, 60 years. You know, we see in our generation, I know I've got people that have been married 30 and 40 years. But the next generation that's coming up, they're not going to be married at as long, okay? And then there's a generation coming up that's not going to marry at all. So that puts a different spin on the quote unquote family and the raising of children. We look at children as being a gift, a present, you know. But now people feel like, I don't know if I want to have kids. There are a lot of young ladies. I don't know if I want to have kids. A lot of men. I don't know if I want to have any kids. You used to be able to call them old maids, or the mother would say, I need one of y'all to do something because I want some grandbabies, you know, or the man would tell his son, come on, John, you got to pump something out here because I'm getting a little too old just to look at you. I need a hair, you know, someone to keep the tradition going. But this new generation, there's a lot of them that are not locked into the traditions of parenting and raising kids.
Yeah, you're right. And a lot of people, just like some people don't want to have kids, there are some who do. And there are some people who want the children without having the spouse. You know, so you got some of those too. Because I'm gonna tell you something, is those spouses you were talking about, those couples that last forever, 50 years or so.
Right.
Some of those people caught pure hell in those relationships. And some of them wanted to leave, but their parents tell them, stay there with them. You got to stay there. You got to stay there. And some of these ladies, I'm going to tell you, they got abused by their spouses, you know, and their parents is telling them to stay because they believe in the marriage, the family thing. But you go into pure hell.
The wholesomeness of the family. And in the spiritual community, the religious community, it was frowned upon if a woman came and said that her husband was abusing her, and the pastor of the church would say, he providing for you, ain't you? He putting food on the table, ain't he? What you complaining about? Get back in the kitchen.
That's a bunch of crap.
You're right.
He might be putting, food. I can do bad by myself. You know, ain't no use to me staying there for you to provide for me. It's like you have this rope around my neck. You know, I have to do what you want done because you're providing for me. Nope, can't do that. And that's why we have a lot of the separation, you know, of the parents, because women ain't gonna take the stuff that their parents took or their grandparents took. They're not gonna do it. But then yet still there are women who want children. You know, because children is a fulfillment, you know. So they want the kid, but then they don't want that man to go with them. And it may be a little hard for them, but sometimes they're willing to do it.
Right.
They're willing to do it.
And when you look at it, also how parenting has changed, especially amongst what we call the baby boomers. You know, that's when step parents started to step in. when you look at families now, we call them baby mamas and baby daddy, because you might have a family where the guy has 2 baby mamas. This is the new family coming up. And the young lady has 2 baby daddies. And if they do merge, there's a lot of people involved in the conversation when it comes down to rearing and what should be in the best interest of the kids. You know, some fathers are absent, and then there are men raising their children, either because the woman decided she wanted to go off on her own, or she might have just died or passed away. So the family is different. Parenting is totally different now than it was, say, 50 years ago. All you had to do was talk to the man and the woman. Now it's extended beyond the grandparents. You know, grandparents stepped in and, you know, babysitted. And look at that. A lot of grandparents are telling their daughters and their sons, don't bring no babies back here. I'm retired. I ain't no babysitter. So
they are. but you know what? Once you're a parent, you're gonna always be a parent.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of grandparents, they don't mind, you know, taking care of their kids, you know, especially if they had a good relationship with their children, you know,
Right.
If they don't have any major things they need to do with their lives, they don't mind taking care of those kids or grandkids to give them a better life. Because sometimes they can see their children are struggling. And that's what grandparents do. They help their children raise their children. Once a parent, always a parent. And sometimes it's better. Sometimes the grandparent is better for them than the parent. So you never can tell, because you like you said, that modern day parenting. Some of the parents, they have the kids and they want to party still, so they're gonna get out in the streets and do whatever, and that leaves the kids alone. And the kids, they need training too. They need that home training. And grandparents sometimes is the root. You know, that base, that foundation for them to grow up and have a steady life, a healthy mind, and all of that kind of stuff. So grandparents, they still have their roles, even though some say, I done raised my children, now you raise yours.
And you know, we look at another dimension of the family. This goes back to the baby boomers. One of the most drastic changes in the rearing, education, and support of the family changed when all the baby boomers started being born. The television became a part of parenting. You know, TV shows. You know, when I was growing up and I had to think about it, I said, man, you know, I remember a lot of shows where there were no mothers. Shows like Bonanza, you know, Horse Cart, right? Little Joe, they was raised by their dad. Shows like The Rifleman, never saw, she died. A lot of the Westerns showed white males in position as the father, but no mothers. And then they started doing other shows where they had the, even Andy Griffin, you know, all these single males raising their sons. Okay.
But Andy had Aunt B there to help out.
Yeah, Aunt B. Oh yeah, Aunt B. Remember that? Yes. But you know, that was it, you know, but that was educating a lot of the white males on the roles in the family. But at the same time, as African American growing up in America, we didn't have those type shows. I think Julia came on and she was a single mother raising the child. And then you had Good Times. They showed a nuclear family. You had the Cosbys and all that type stuff. But even when the Cosbys showed up, people said, that's not a regular family. You know, but families have evolved. And there's shows that come on now, the television, once again, teaching us how to be parents. Because back when you were growing up, if you said a bad word, you could almost assure yourself that somebody in your family was cussing. But now you don't know where your kids are being influenced. Now we not only have the television, but we have social media, all these other devices that are coming into the household, taking hold of the missing parent. Because people leave their kids with Nintendo for 10, 12 hours a day, all kind of things.
Yeah, and the videos and stuff like that, you have to monitor your kids and what they see, monitor the music. Because I know my son, he used to listen to this raunchy music. What to me, it was raunchy, but to him, it was nice. It had a good beat and all that kind of stuff. But the words were cursing words and stuff. I'm going, no, we can't have that in my house. He said, but Mama, I like the beat. I'm not listening to the words. It's the beat. I'm going, I'm hearing the words. I'm not hearing the beat. Whoa. So, you got to put a stop to it. And I kept telling him, I don't want to hear that. One day I just went in there and took his stuff. And he didn't think it was right. You don't have a right to take my stuff. I told you not to have it. And one of the things, parents have to not be afraid of their kids and afraid to discipline them, because God have charged you with that job, and you can't be afraid. A lot of parents say, I don't want to make them upset. But if you are doing the right thing, they'll get over that upsetness. They'll get over it. If they don't, they know how to take care of themselves. They should, if they're going to do something about it. Hopefully they won't be one of those. Huh?
Well, it made me think about something. And again, not to fault the baby boomers. One of the questions is, how can we create a healthy village to help raise healthy children? Remember back in the day, you had, even if there was a situation where the male was missing in the family, the village raised the children. You had a big mama. I don't care where you were, if you were up north, Detroit, Chicago, down south, you always had a big mama figure that kept the nucleus of the family going. I mean, there were different things happening in the family. You had an uncle that had some bad habits, but guess what? Big mama put everybody and kept everybody in check.
Yeah, and you have to
they went to school, they went to church, they cooked.
Yeah, you have to form an allegiance with a lot of the other parents too. You have to form an allegiance with a lot of the parents, like getting them involved in different sports and stuff, and you get to know the parents and their kids playing together. And so if you're not there, then that other parents can keep your child in check. That happened a lot of times. Parents always tell on other kids, because I know I did. I did, because I went to a junior high event one time at school. I was chaperoning, and I saw one of these girls up there dancing like she weren't supposed to. I went home and called her mom. The girl was upset. She said, why you tell my mama that? I'm going, why were you dancing like that? She was dancing all nasty and stuff. And this for a junior high kid. You don't dance like that. No, you got to have respect. And one of the things, as parents, we have to teach our children to have respect for ourselves, for themselves and for others. And you don't just do anything for attention. You got to love yourself more than you love anybody else. No, you got to teach them that. But, just forming an alliance, going to church, being involved in church, you got a lot of people who going to cuddle your kids and teach them the right thing. Because if you out there and then you see Sister Mary, you ain't gonna cut up in front of Sister Mary, because Sister Mary gonna come back and tell mom, or gonna discipline you herself. So you have to form that allegiance, and don't say my kid, you can't touch my kid or anything like that, because that will, if a child know that you're not gonna allow anybody to touch them, then they're going to get away with stuff. They're going to do things that they shouldn't be doing. Because I know when my kids were in school, I told the kid, the teacher, you have my permission to whip my child if they get him out of hand. Even though I knew they couldn't do it, but I gave them that permission. I'm going, I can't be everywhere all the time. If you see my child doing wrong, you have my permission to whip them. You know, Miss Hayes, we can't do that. But you got my permission. I told my kids they have permission, even though I knew they weren't going to do it. But my child the teacher had permission to do it. And that'll keep them straight a little bit.
Yeah. Well, look what happened. A lot of that change. Look what happened. A lot of that changed. A lot of it's hard to discipline, kids now in school. You can't whoop them.
I know.
You have to put them in timeout. So you don't have the same liberty that we used to have. And then neighbors aren't neighbors like they used to be in Big Mama days. When I was going to school, I walked down the street. It was about 4 or 5 people, women, that would check me if I didn't have a book. Most of the time, if I snuck by the first 2, by the time I got to the third one, they say, you need to go back and get your books. Well, that was the type of camaraderie that was in the neighborhood. But what happened now, families are isolated. People don't know their neighbors. They said, don't touch my kid. I don't want you to touch. There are families that get into fights because someone disciplined another one's child. So the family is not being raised by the village anymore. One of the reasons we have a lot of crime and different things like that in neighborhoods is because the village is no longer raising the kid, being a support system for the kids. People scared to come out their house because of what? Bad kids.
Yeah.
That used to not be the case. That used to not be the case.
Right. And you have to start your kids young, training them not to be bad. You got to teach them the consequences, because some of the kids, a lot of times, they are bad because they don't know the consequences. They don't think about things that they do. They just do it. So you have to teach them there are consequences for everything you do, and teach them if you do this or this, you're going to get this or this. This is going to happen to you. So if they don't know consequences, or they're not aware of it, then they're going to do things like stealing. They shouldn't be stealing. Okay, but they do. And if your child is stealing, if you catch your child stealing, you punish them right then and there. Don't say what you got. Because there are some parents who say, what you got? Let's see. Instead of saying, no, you don't do that. Because even as little bitty babies, kids, they pick up candy, they don't know they don't know it's wrong. They know they didn't pay for it, but they don't totally know it's wrong. But you take them back to the store and make them give it back to the people.
We're right. Well, going back to good parenting, I know we got some good parents out there. I think we got Mike, and I know I think Mike's got about 3 or 4 boys, and him and his wife raised them, and they're good kids and all that. A lot of people are putting a little bit more into making sure that they do parent the kids. I think some of the traditional tools that were in place for keeping a family together, marriage does keep a strong bond. A healthy marriage. In the past, there were some marriages where people say, I was married for 65 years and 64 of them was pure hell. And the new generation say, you know what? I'm not going to be like grandmama and them. I'm not going to be in something just for the kids. But there has to be some type of compromise where grown adults say, you know what? We got these kids here, and it's our responsibility to make sure that they come up and they are put in the best position that we both can give them to survive in this world. And I think when you look at parenting, that's what it's really all about.
Yeah, it is. Because as far as survival, that survival thing starts early. learning how to feed yourself. The children, you're teaching the baby how to feed themselves, how to eat right, giving them the right food so they won't just have junk all the time, telling them no when they want candy. You got to eat your food first before you get this candy. That's training right there. That's good parenting. And teaching the kids when they get older how to cook. That's survival mode. Teaching them how to iron their clothes, how to wash their clothes. It's a lot. Teaching them how to save their money and not spend every penny they got. A lot. Parenting goes a long ways rather than just saying the good and the bad. It's a lot. Even their homework. Teaching them how to be disciplined in doing their homework and trying to, be somebody and doing the best they can in school. So it's a lot of parenting.
As a woman, do you see the modern family? I'm talking about, the older family. I forgot what they call them, but they call people that's in their 60s now, they call them baby boomers. Then you had Generation Xers. Then you had Generation Y, and then you got another generation that's coming up. Some of the core values like cooking, learning how to sew, or teaching the men how to change the tire, cut a yard, just simple things that like chores, really. And you'll be surprised how much and how many people in this new generation, they don't have those skill sets. And when you don't have those skill sets, you're not teaching your kids those skill sets. It makes it difficult for them to be a part of quote unquote society, because society, at some point, they're gonna get together, and at some point they're gonna come together and make babies. Now, if you have some type of order, which was traditionally marriage put everything in order. They say, okay, little Johnny and little Becky, you all gonna get together, and when you get a certain age, you're gonna marry, gonna have kids, and you're gonna become grandparents of your kids. And that, put us in a position where that was a traditional family. But now, by not having a traditional family, the traditional family is kind of under attack. And by being under attack, kids are not being raised like they used to be raised, being taught different things. You have young ladies that don't know how to cook. I see something, my father taught his son how to cook and his daughter how to change the tire and maintain. Oh, yes. A lot of people taught, and this started in the baby boomer generation. They started teaching, not only there are men that can cook, and there are women that can change tires. Yeah. And in order to be equipped to be into the generation that's coming, we kind of have hybrid kids. It used to be traditional. What they said, roses are red, violets are blue. What I forgot. Sticks,
roses are red, violets are blue, sugar sweet, and so are you. That one.
Yeah. But what's the thing about girls? Puppy dog tails or something. Boys are made out of something, and girls are made out of, those are
something as snails or something. I don't remember all
but
of that.
They were traditional things that identified the roles of young men and young women. But today, it's kind of a mixed bag, and when people are teaching, women are teaching, and men are teaching their daughters how to change the tire, because they say you might not have a man that can change the tire, so I want you to be able to change the tire on your own. You might not have a man that could cut grass, so I want you to be able to push a lawnmower on your own. Or she might have been raised by her mother, and her mother had to cut her own yard and change her own tires and pump her own gas. So they are being taught different things. Or a male being taught how to cook, how to sew, a lot of what we call domesticated things in order that they can survive. So the whole parenting equation has changed.
Yeah, it has. And I taught my children how to sew, how to cook, change tires and all that kind of stuff. My kids, Man, they were driving. I had them sitting in my lap driving because they were too small. So like 12 years old, my kids could drive on the highway.
Wow.
12, 13, they could drive. So there was no problem with that. I taught my kids how to change a flat. And my daughter, bless her heart, she had her battery died in her car. And it was a guy that was going to help her. He didn't even know how to do the battery. And she was upset. She called him a puny wimp or something. She was upset because he didn't know how to boost a car off, jump a car off. Wow. And she did. Wow. She knew how to do it because I taught my kids how to jump a car, how to check your fluids and stuff, how to change your flat. So because I didn't want them in the middle of the highway, middle somewhere, waiting for somebody to come and change a flat for them. They knew how to do that stuff on their own. So my kids, they got the independence, and my son is the best cook you ever want to see.
Whoa, okay.
I am so proud of him, man. I be wanting to copy some of his recipes.
Okay.
He's really a good cook. He could actually open up a restaurant.
Okay.
He's really good. And I don't tell my kids all of this independent stuff, and they're decent members of the society.
Oh,
and that's the other thing.
Yes. Well, I think this is going to upset some people.
What?
But one of the things now, you did a great job of teaching your interchanging skill sets within your son and your daughter. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of families are not teaching equally. They teach the girls. They say, well, you know what? I ain't got a man. You ain't got a man. You better learn how to change the tire. You better learn how to cook. You better go to college and get you a degree. You better get you a good job. Better always have you a new car, because a man is not going to be there to help you raise these babies. And a lot of men have been pacified into a position, young men, where they can't do nothing. Like you said, they're not pumping the gas. I never, even when my mother was driving, it was a thing to get out and pump the gas and all this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of the young males are being kind of petted, and the mothers are doing the work. I've seen mothers with 14-year-olds, and these 14-year-olds running around with size 12 shoes and about 6 feet, 207 pounds, eating all kind of groceries, and they just sit around playing video games where the little girls are cooking, and then they get spoiled. They don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to change the tire. They can't cook. They can't go outside and rake the leaves up or anything that typically men should be doing. And I do think that part of parenting is identifying certain goals and roles for children. Mm-hmm. I believe that we should have equal responsibilities.
Yeah.
But as a male, and this may be coming from an alpha male type situation, I would rather a male be able to go outside than sit up in the house and cook and fold sheets and iron.
Right.
Even though I can fold, even though I can cook and fold sheets and iron, I would rather a male be outside taking care of things. If I had a daughter, I would not want my daughter. Matter of fact, I'd probably be protesting the wedding or anything if that guy wasn't outside making sure that men, what we call men things, were being done. Taking care of the yard, taking care of the car, those traditional things. I think as parents, we have to teach our children as they grow up, because those are some things that they should be doing. And I see some of these little ladies out here pumping gas, pushing lawnmowers, and they just say, I got to do it because they ain't gonna do it. They ain't gonna have no man to do it.
Yeah, but then too, sometimes some of that is just their independence. Women want to do some of those things now because I don't mind getting under the hood of my car. I used to could do it, but now they changed everything. Because I used to could change the spark plugs in my car. You know,
Okay.
my mom did things. She got under there and changed the water hoses and all of that kind of stuff. So
What was
I
your
found
daddy
that
doing?
so fascinating, huh?
What was your daddy doing?
My dad wasn't around. Yeah,
Well,
they divorced a
okay.
long time ago.
Okay.
But then, you know,
Again,
I had cousins and stuff who could have done that too. But
right.
why you gonna get somebody else to do stuff you can do yourself? And that
Right.
was one of the things I try to teach my kids. Don't depend on people to do stuff that you can do for yourself. You got to learn. You got to be well versed. Don't just be narrow minded and stuff like that. I teach my kids to be well rounded. You know.
Well, you know what? Now I know this may sound like a male chauvinist, but if again going back to a traditional family, you know, maybe if Adam and Eve, I don't know if Adam and Eve would be considered a traditional family, but a traditional family where there's an equal share of responsibility. I believe that raising the children is equal responsibility. I believe that the new families, because they got a lot of the snapshots of our great grandparents, they got a lot of the snapshots of their grandparents and their parents. And then they have the advantage of technology. And there's a lot of things out there now to help people become better parents. Okay. Back in the day, we had Dr. Seuss. Remember Dr. Seuss?
I remember.
Everybody.
Green eggs and ham.
Green eggs and ham. That's we came up on that. But now there's new thought processes. There's new ways of looking at things, and maybe I might be wrong. Maybe males need to know how to cook, because I can cook, I can sew, but that was not a priority in my household. But I knew how to do it. A priority when I was growing up was making sure when I was pretty much raised with my granddaddy as being the male figure in the house, and that kind of set the standard for me. Anytime we got out of hand, which was not that often, you know, he would check us as a male figure in the house. But my mother could handle us when it came down to either discipline or anything like that. When it came down to making sure that we did our homework, or we did our work around the house, we just knew it was something to do. And I was like, well, my mom working, so I got to go to work. I got to make sure that I don't mess up the house. I don't leave stuff out. You know, sometimes today when you look at situations of parenting, when the women leave the house, I've gone in houses where the kids look like somebody that broke in. The rooms are chaotic and nobody's got any order. They got food and dishes in the sink from a week, 2 weeks, you know, where in a family, even if it was a single woman, there was some type of order where the kids felt some degree of responsibility. So I believe you have to have or enforce responsibility when it comes down to parenting.
Yeah, that's part of the parenting responsibility to teach the kids. You know, just because you're the parent doesn't mean you have to do everything. You got to designate work to these kids. If the parent is out working, the kids would be home washing dishes and cleaning up. You know, keep that house clean. If they're big enough to cook, they cook too. Because I started cooking at a young age, man. I was making cornbread when I was knee high to an ant. You know,
okay.
So I was.
So you didn't have what's that Jiffy bake oven, the easy bake oven? You went from the easy bake to the real stove. That's what you said.
When I remember making cornbread, I was too small to put my bowl on the table. I had to set my bowl in the chair to mix the cornbread.
They call that child abuse now.
No, but that's something you want to do. That wasn't child abuse. That's teaching your kids while they're young, teaching them responsibility. You know, you train them because your brain got so much knowledge. I mean, you got to take in so much. You got to start young, teaching them. You know, so not only do you teach them how to cook, but how to be responsible and how to treat people right too. You know, and being respectful. That's another thing that parents have to do. Teach their kids to be respectful of other people and how to be social and not to fight all the time, how to think before they act. There's a lot of stuff that parents need to teach their kids, and they do teach their kids, and kids don't realize that, like paying for stuff, you know, and credit cards. You got to teach your kids how to not get these big old credit card debts, you know,
Right.
because you know, they target these kids in college, and kids they get these credit cards and they spend like crazy because it's open market. But they don't realize how much debt they're going to be in and how much they're going to have to pay back for spending on that credit card. So parents got to teach them that too. You know, they have to teach them so much. Look, they got to teach them how to do right from wrong, how to obey the laws. And, you know, parents got to teach the kids how to, like black people, you know, how to be aware of the police.
Well, you just open up another chapter. See, as parents, there was a time when you taught your kids, yes, sir, no, ma'am. You know, I did that all the way up till I was in my 20s, and I still do it. When I go around my elders, I'm like, yes, sir, no, ma'am. When it came down to authority, the police, the fire people, firemen, the doctors, anybody. Well, today, that's not being taught. And when you look, especially in the African American community, it's not being taught to respect your elders, people in charge, people in authority. I can't think of an incident I think of one incident, maybe a couple of incidents where someone got in a fight with a teacher. Okay. When I was in, I think I might have been in junior high school, they had a coach and they said, man, you know, what's his name? Jumped on Coach Smitty. Coach Smitty tore his behind up, you know, and when I got in high school, it might have been another situation. But today, you got young people jumping on teachers. These teachers afraid to be in the classroom because they've already threatened them. And we didn't have that because we respected the teachers that much.
And you don't do that kind of stuff because your parents would get on you.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Well, now you got some parents to go down. Well, you got some parents to take it. To take the action to the teacher. They'll take what the child said, and in some cases, adults are misbehaving. But my mom always gave them the benefit of the doubt. If somebody in authority said something, they pretty much were on point. But I didn't get into
what teachers lie too. If the teachers don't like you, they lie too, and they be lying on these kids sometimes. A lot of times you can take the teacher's word for it, but sometimes they be lying too.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what has shifted the narrative where people don't trust people in authority. Used to be a time where the teacher, you said the teacher, oh, you have the teacher say something. Oh, it's on point. It's the deacon or the pastor say something. It's on point. Now we in a generation where people don't really trust or value the opinion of nobody. Even when it comes down to somebody say, well, you know, I'm gonna call your mother. People say, go ahead. I'm gonna call your daddy. Go ahead. I'm gonna call the police. Go ahead. Well, when you don't have anyone that's you value or respect when it comes down to authority, that's why we have a lot of what we call just crazy crimes happening in the community. Case in point, Lenox Mall in Atlanta. they just made it a law that if you under, I think 16 years old, you got to be escorted by your parents. Now,
Yeah.
When I was growing up, we just didn't hang around the mall. The first time I went to the mall, I think my mom took me, and it was to get something that she wanted. To hang, they didn't have the arcades and all that stuff back then. Now they got a whole lot of stuff, but kids don't even go inside and play the arcade games. They just stay on the outside and harass customers.
Oh, really?
In Lenox Square here in Atlanta, it's a law to any unescorted teenager, I think 16 or 17 years old. That means they're going to check their ID and all that type of stuff. They're going to get locked up. And then the parents going to get locked up. Now, parents are already stressed. They got to work. They got to do all this stuff. And your kids at the mall getting locked up for doing crazy crimes. So we have to look at discipline, ourselves. But if we just had looked at some lessons, what's one of the things that you could share with parents that they got to put in the toolbox when it comes to raising kids?
What are you could tell the kids? That's a good question. Just pay attention to the kids for one. Don't just let them go off and do anything. If you see a child going wrong, discipline them. Okay, because a lot of time people see kids. I tell you a good one. Like I've seen kids do the what you call this dance that I wouldn't be caught doing.
Okay. The forbidden dance. The forbidden dance.
Yeah.
The naughty dance.
Yeah. You see a kid doing that, don't say, oh, that's cute. No, you stop them right there. No, you don't do that. You got to stop those kids and discipline them and teach them the right thing to do. Don't just let them do it and say it's cute or just ignore it. You got to guide them because they don't know. Even if your child is 28 years old, they still need guidance. They think they know at 28. They don't know. So even from a baby up, you have to teach your children the right thing. Don't just let them go. And teach them that there are going to be consequences for their actions. That's one of the things you got to know. There are consequences. Whether I know it or not, you're going to have consequences because what's done in the dark is coming to the light. And some people don't realize that. You go out there stealing with your buddies, you're going to get caught. Okay?
Right.
And one of the things you don't teach your children, you don't be there for them every time they get in trouble either. You let them suffer the consequences. Because if your child get in jail, you running to get them out. No, I told you, you know better. You're going to stay there. That's the way you do it. No, I didn't do that. There was always consequences for doing wrong. If I teach you the right thing and you go out there and do wrong, and I'm telling you, don't do this, and you go do it anyway, you just got to suffer the consequences. I'm not going to be saying, oh, poor baby, my baby's in jail, my baby's in the hospital because he got shot. I'm going to feel sorry for you, but I ain't going to,
I see we got a comment from Mike. Mike said we should stop programming our children to think they need a spouse or children to be a man or a woman. A lot of children at a young age, I'm talking about pre-teenagers are running around with baby dolls and they think that they need to have a baby. It's that's why we got such a young population of people bearing children, raising children. And if they're in their teens, now I've seen some teens that were, good parents, but most people in their teens just learning themselves. So that's a good point, Mike, that we have to kind of educate our young people, even your grandkids, in my case or your case, Sylvia. We have to kind of, corral them into position. And when you see them doing some bad behavior, that's going to be detrimental to the forward movement of the family element, because when the family element is destroyed, we won't have no more life.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we going back to being barbarians and those types, when you don't have no degree of law and order, you just doing what you want to do. And I think at some point we're going to realize that we have to enforce some form of discipline within our family structure. You know, it ain't like I'm gonna have some new kids, you know, but I probably have some more grandkids. So I have to do my part as a senior or older or a grandparent to ensure that my grandkids are learning something that I can pass down. And one of those things would be self-discipline. You're gonna have to know when to say no, teach them how to know themselves first so they can be better spouses and parents. And that's a good one, Mike. We have to teach, especially in the African American community, we have to teach traditions. We have to teach some things where we say we don't do that. You know, in my case, the drummers don't behave like that. You have to put some degree of it stops here. We don't do that. We don't behave like that. We don't go to jail. You know, all those type things. We don't steal. And I think when you do that and enforce those things, we don't beat our women. You know, when you put all those things in place, the children start to emulate what you're doing. And I think it will be better role models. It makes better children models.
Right, because because there's some of the things I do, because my family are entrepreneurs, and so we're not jailbirds, we're not drug addicts or anything like that. So we don't expect anybody in the family, all the offsprings, to do anything different than that. And we let them know. You got all kinds of preachers in my family. Even today, as old as I am, and my grandfather is passed away, he was a minister. My uncle is a minister. My brother is a minister. My cousin's a minister. If I do something wrong, I think about my grandfather. What was he thinking?
Okay.
And he been dead for 40-some years. What would he think? And so you got to instill that in here. My family didn't, like you said, my family didn't do this. We got this in our family, and this in our family, and this in our family. And the family values, you got to be in place. You got to be in step with everything else. You can't go off. We expect better from you. We expect better, and we do not accept anything less than the best from you. And we try to teach the kids, love yourself more than you love anybody else. Because a lot of kids, like girls, for instance, sometimes they be getting pregnant for these guys because the guys want to have sex with them. Teach your girl, keep your dress down. Even though we have this two-sided thing. The guys tell their boys to go and get everything you can, and then we tell the girls to keep your dress down. Huh?
We're not doing that.
Really?
It's the girls. It's the girls. That's what it got, But again, the values, and I think on both sides, because we taught some bad behavior to our children, going back to our great grandparents, when it comes down to abuse, when it comes down to males going out there, sowing their oats and spreading themselves. And now women are saying, we could do the same thing. And we kind of metamorphose into the situation we're in now, where everybody say they on their own. What's that song? Megan Thee Stallion and those got WAP. We can do what we want to do, just like y'all do what y'all want to do. And that's changing the dynamics. But I think at the end of the day, people would rather the nuclear family, where a man and a woman raising children to become better men and women.
Yeah, that's the thing, to be better men and women. We want our kids to be better than us.
Right.
We were good, but you got to be better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got to be better. So raising children is a task, and it's a glorious job. And I hope everybody don't take it for granted Don't take your parents for granted for all the things they do. Parents make a lot of sacrifices for their children. They sacrifice their livelihood, their dreams. They sacrifice getting a pair of shoes for themselves versus getting one for you. They sacrifice food. If there's only a small amount of food, a lot of parents give that food to their children rather than them eating it themselves. They sacrifice. So parenting is a serious job. It is a serious job. I know one lady who wore holes in her shoes, but her kids didn't. You know, she went to work hungry, but her kids were fed. You know, so parenting is a serious job, and don't ever take it for granted. Always love your parents, whoever you are. Always love your parents, and just because they're getting old and senile, that's the time for you to really be taking care of them, because one day you're going to be in those same shoes.
Well, we ain't all going to get old and senile. We might get old, but we ain't all get senile. I don't think so.
I don't know. Well, hopefully not. But you're going to be in those same shoes one day. So, and don't be giving your parents a hard time, because parents know best. You know, you might think you know better, but parents look down the road. You look past your nose. Okay? So they know, okay? And don't think they're old-timey and don't know anything. Because we all go through that. Oh, mama old-timey, she don't know any better. 10 years from now, you're going to look back and say, mama didn't know better. I just didn't know.
We've done everything they're thinking about doing. You know, as we close out, is there one little power thought you want to give out to parents?
I can't think of one right now. No, but I do want to say this book, Power Thoughts, it's a very good book. I wrote this book for the children, you know, but for the parents as well. Power Thoughts by Sylvia Hayes. I guess we can get it out of the light here. Power Thoughts. This is a very good book. It's helpful for the parents in raising their children. And you can get this book on the internet. Just Google Power Thoughts by Sylvia Hayes. It has helped so many parents with their children and helped so many children too. Okay, Ooh. So with life, I call it Life 101. Okay.
All right, Mama Sylvia.
Yeah. So that is all I have today. Next week, we're going to have another good one. It will be announced later on.
Okay.
Yeah, the topic for next week.
Take care. Keep the good.